Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, the cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. So today I'm coming to you all with a review for Godzilla vs. Kong, directed by Adam Wingard and starring Alexander Skarsgård, Millie Bobby Brown, Rebecca Hall, and Brian Tyree Henry. So this is actually the fourth film in the MonsterVerse, following Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and now Godzilla vs. Kong. It also happens to be the 36th film in the Godzilla franchise, as well as the 12th film in the Kong franchise. So these two have been around a long time. So the story here is pretty straightforward. We are seeing the ultimate OG Titans going head to head finally as Godzilla goes rogue for unexplained reasons. So I'm going to start with the pros, and there are quite a few of them. So as I previously mentioned, this film is directed by Adam Wingard. He's previously directed films like You're Next, The Guest, Blair Witch, and Death Note. As you can tell, he's most known for his work in horror films, so this is a bit of a departure for him. But I would say for the most part, it was a pretty solid transition. I really enjoyed what he and his team did with this film. I was loving the production design, I was loving the cinematography, I loved how colorful the visuals were and how vibrant and eye-catching so many of these scenes were. I mean, throughout the film you see all these various uses of color and like it really draws you in, and very visually stunning, definitely eye-catching, and I really enjoyed how they did that. I especially love the use of Hong Kong and the cityscape and the neon lighting. I think that was an exceptionally well done set piece. I will say the fight choreography definitely stood out to me in this as well. You might go into this thinking you know who's gonna win or who has the advantage over one, but then you get a lot from both Godzilla and Kong. You think one has one on the ropes, then the other one comes out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden they've turned the tables. Like, yeah, I think the fluidity of the fight sequences was really, really great because there were moments where you kind of thought, well, maybe, and then you weren't sure, and it just really added to the thrill of it all. I think the film overall did a really great job highlighting both Godzilla and Kong as legends and as titans in their own right. I mean, it was very brutal, it was in your face, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I did have the opportunity to see this at a Dolby Theater in an AMC with my mask on, of course. And I swear to you, those seats have never rumbled in another movie like they did in this one. So whoever did the sound design or the sound mixing, kudos, because every time Godzilla roared, every time there was a punch thrown, like you just felt it. And it really added to the experience. It felt very engaging, and it really felt like, hey, I am really witnessing these two titans going head to head. I feel like I am literally there. Now, when it comes down to the human aspect of the film, in my trailer reaction video that I did a little while ago, I did say the following. I just hope that when they actually focus on the human characters in this film, that they won't make them so dumb, making dumb decisions and just making them so annoying. That was one thing that drove me crazy in King of the Monsters. I was just like, can we just get characters that you're rooting for and don't do dumb things and actually have some emotional investment in? And I was hoping that was going to be the case in this film. And I can definitely say that they succeeded, at least halfway. Where they succeeded was in the casting of Alexander Skarsgård, Rebecca Hall, and Kaylee Hoddle as Dr. Nathan, Dr. Eileen, and Gia. I mean, they were smart, they were likable, they were resourceful, and you felt like they really cared about what was going on and that they were doing their best to put their heads together and come up with the right solution. And as the film progresses, you realize these three are basically Team Kong, and they are really doing their best to help Kong find his way throughout the film. They weren't obnoxious, they weren't annoying, and their dialogue wasn't horrible. And I was so appreciative of that. And particularly with Gia, that was a character I really appreciated. She really is the heart of the film, as is her relationship with Kong. I know when it comes to the use of children in films, it can be very overly sentimental or very syrupy, but I didn't feel that here. I felt like it was very genuine and it didn't feel cheap. And I absolutely love that they chose a hearing impaired actress for this part and that they made that a focal point in the story. Just the thought of hearing impaired adults and especially children watching this, seeing the connection between her and Kong and the communication and just seeing themselves represented on screen, I thought that was absolutely beautiful. So definitely a big kudos to the writers for incorporating that into the film. I will also say that when it comes to Kong, there's a very specific sequence where Kong's exploring this new area. I won't spoil what that area is, but I will say as soon as that whole scene started, I felt like a little kid. Like, I was so into it. Just seeing Kong at peace and exploring and really enjoying himself was great. That whole moment was very atmospheric and very engaging and very peaceful in a sense. Like, I think it was the right tone. I think it was really, really well made. From the design to the music, like the whole vibe of that sequence was really great, and that definitely was a highlight for me. All right, now I'm gonna jump over to the cons because there were a few of those as well. So going off of what I said about the human characters, I do understand when it comes to these stories why the human presence is there to an extent, because it's kind of highlighting the disparity between these larger than life titans or monsters and then us as humanity hanging in the balance and witnessing all of this. So from that perspective, I get it. And of course, we have to have stars, we have to have names to add to this. So I can understand why it would be difficult to completely eliminate the human presence from these films. However, I do think that the way the humans are utilized is not always the best. And I do think out of all the films in the MonsterVerse, I feel like Godzilla King of the Monsters was the absolute worst when it came to the human characters. First of all, the dialogue was atrocious. I mean, some of the worst dialogue I've heard in a while. It just was a lot of quirky one-liners, like type stuff like that, and I can't stand that. And I feel like that only works if it is being self-aware or it is just really well done or the dialogue is on point. And in King of the Monsters, it was not. It just did not work at all. It was very obnoxious. It was very irritating, and I was just so over them. I felt like they continuously said dumb things. They continuously did dumb things, and by the time we got to about halfway through the movie, I was ready for the Titans to kill all of them. I was just like, I'm done. I'm over it. I have no investment. All of you are like killing me. Like, get rid of all of them. The one exception I would say is Ken Watanabe, because I do think he did the best job with what he was given, and his character was the only one that had a little something that resonated. But even he, I don't think was used well. So it was just like, ugh. But everyone else, expendable. Go away. I'm done. So I am a fan of Brian Tyree Henry, and I have enjoyed seeing him progress as an actor, from the series Atlanta to Widows, If Beale Street Could Talk, and even films like Into the Spider-Verse, Child's Play, and Joker. I think he is very, very talented. However, this character that they gave him, honestly, I thought it was beneath him. Now, when it comes down to it, he did get his check. He was able to be a part of a big project, and, you know, that's important as far as visibility. But the character itself, I just feel like it was not worthy of his talents. I did get what they were trying to do with the character as far as the conspiracy theory type vibe. And I think if they had maybe tweaked the characterization a little bit or changed some of the dialogue, I might have been like, okay, well, I get that. But I just felt a lot of it was very cartoonish, very juvenile, and very pointless. And the dialogue was not any better. There's literally a scene in this film where he walks into a room and says, "Bid what?" Millie Bobby Brown, I don't understand why she was in this. I did not enjoy her at all in King of the Monsters, and I did not enjoy her here either. Was not needed. I thought Julian Denson was great as Fire Fist in Deadpool 2, but he really had nothing to do here. And I think all three of these characters, Bernie, Madison, and Josh, aka Team Godzilla, they really could have been left on the cutting room floor. They literally added nothing to the film, and if you cut them out of it, it wouldn't change anything. It felt like every time we jumped over to Team Kong, the film moved and I was engaged and I was in it. But then every time we jumped back to Team Godzilla, it just grinded to a halt and I was just like, ugh. Can we move this along, please? And I feel like whoever was in charge of the characters for King of the Monsters was also in charge of these three. Absolutely not needed. Story-wise, I thought it was pretty thin. And ultimately, I get it. We're here for the fight, so we don't need a whole bunch of exposition and explanations. You know, we don't need to slow things down. However, I would also have liked to have gotten a little more backstory with Kong and Godzilla, like a couple of flashback sequences, you know, just kind of rounding things out. Especially if we take out a lot of Team Godzilla screen time, then we could have gotten a little bit more with Kong or Godzilla. And I think that would have rounded out the film a lot more. I did enjoy the score for the most part, although I did think there were moments where it was really overused and unnecessary. Like there were just some moments where not that much was happening, but you still heard dun 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 dun. Can we just turn the volume down a little bit? Just a little bit. I thought the villain in this was pretty weak and kind of pointless. I think because the story was so thin, his character didn't seem to have a real purpose. And I think if they had just kind of given him a little something, it would have given it more oomph. I think they just needed to kind of flesh out his motivation a little bit because what he was doing kind of made sense, but we never got a real sense of who he was or like why he was doing what he did. So it was very much like, okay, like he was just there. So overall, I would give Godzilla vs. Kong a B minus. There are definitely some things that annoy me, but I think overall the good definitely outweighs the bad. I feel like this is a significant improvement over Godzilla and definitely over Godzilla King of the Monsters because I'm sorry, that just was not a fun experience for me. I'll probably have to go back and watch Kong Skull Island and see where I rate this next to Godzilla vs. Kong because I would say about right now they're pretty head to head. I think they are definitely the two best films of the MonsterVerse. However, I do think that Kong Skull Island might be the better film simply because Team Godzilla is not in it. But all things considered, I really enjoyed this. It definitely was a fun experience, especially seeing it at the theater. If it's possible for you to go to a theater and just keep your mask on and take a lot of precautions, then I would definitely recommend you do that. But even if you stay home and stream it, I think you'll still have a fun time either way. So definitely worth watching. Godzilla vs. Kong is currently playing in theaters and streaming on HBO Max. You guys can check it out, leave your thoughts below, and let me know what you think. So once again, this is D, Movie Man, signing off. And I'll see you with the movie.